black storm coming. See the lightning strike. Black people rising.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Umoja Circle. My name is Keith Smokey Johnson, and for those of you who are new to the show, the Umoja Circle is an African-centered talk show where I correct errors where errors are found and introduce facts where we find that so many of people are working on fiction when it comes to who we are as people of African descent. This is part two of a two-part discussion that I have dealing with racism and the history of racism and the importance of knowing the past in order to understand the future or the present moment. And I want to start off again with something I talked about in the first show, and that's the word present. What does it mean? Okay, there's a lot of people, before I explain that, there's a lot of people who talk about, I didn't live back then. What do I care about the past? But I want to show you that the past is the present. And this word right here, the present moment, where we are now, but if you take that PRE and then you push it aside and the SENT is little space, you'll get the present moment. People don't realize that the present moment just tells you that what's going on in the present moment is a result of decisions and things that happened in your past. So the past and the present are connected. You can't deal with the present. You can't go to a doctor and he won't do a medical history. You can't get a loan. They won't do a financial history. History and the past and the present are combined. If you got amnesia, you can't understand what's going on in the present if you don't know even where your car's parked right now, without understanding where you parked it in the past. So anybody who tells you that what's going on today had nothing to do with what happened back then when it comes to enslavement and the issues of people of African descent are bringing up in the present moment, in the political arena or the educational arena or the criminal justice system, they are absolutely wrong. And let's continue my discussion here. Again, I will talk about what is racism again. Racism came into being by laws, okay, that were created at the founding of this country, slave codes and the such. Even the Constitution was not created for people of African descent or Native Americans or Mexicans, creating a power relationship between one group of people, white America, over another group of people, black America, in the society, based solely on the color of the skin. You see, the coin of the realm in American society under this thing that I would call, let me stop there and explain racism or ism. Anything that you see with ISM at the end of it, and this is just not my definition, this is your third grade teacher, grammar school teacher, who will tell you this truth, okay, that isms, any word that ends in ism, like capitalism or genderism or classism or socialism, ism has two meanings. The first meaning is an ideology, a way of thinking, okay? Has to do with thought. The second meaning means there's a system in place, okay? So racism, when you hear brothers and sisters talk about a racist system, and white America turn around and say, well, you're racist too. No, that be prejudice. Every human being has prejudices, but racism is that definition, of one group having dominant by law over another group. And that's what slavery was about. That's what even we were so-called freed by the 13th Amendment, unless we were put in jail. That's another story. And the 14th and 15th Amendment gave us citizenship and the right to vote. We were still denied by a group. No black person or no black group can create a situation where dominant white people won't be able to get to go where they want to live or open businesses. We don't have that control in the society. We want equal access to that, but we're still working on that as we speak today. Let's go on to the next image. Yeah. what was created in America, and you don't like to use this words because I'm sure you haven't been told that in your junior high school or middle school or high school or even in college, that America was a caste system, okay? The remnants of it is called racism today. It's an artificial construction built by laws, built by ideas, okay, of those who founded this country, a fixed and embedded ranking of human value. And the value, the coin of the value was the white skin. Okay, this is a caste system. And what you're seeing, and when we talk about supremacy, white supremacy, the caste system created a laid hierarchical type of system. Okay, 3/5 of the human being. We weren't even a whole human being. We were considered chattel. Chattel is a fancy name of saying we were no different than the goats and the horses and everything else. We didn't get, our names weren't even put on the census until 1870, 5 years after the 13th Amendment. Prior to that, we were with the furniture and all the other own stuff. How could you say that America is the land of the free and the founding ideals about freedom and liberty when you have that vast contradiction of a caste system? And we still need to work on that today, remnants of it. Okay. It's just like an old house, and that's the analogy I want you to understand, that you don't, when people say, I don't want to worry about that because I had nothing to do with that, or this is not the issue, I didn't create this system, I'm just trying to survive in it, and blah, blah, blah. I put it this way, if you look at an old house, when you move in, do you just move in without doing any kind of upkeep? You didn't build the house, you didn't design the house, we have been born into it, we've been moved into it, today's generation. And the so-called founding fathers understood that. But they knew what they left us, but they left us to fix the mess that they started. They got it started. They are telling each succeeding generation, you got to work on this. And we still got to work on that old house today. Still got to work on the hidden structure of racism that permeates all the systems. Again, racism means an ideology, but it also means a system in place to maintain and make sure that ideology continues to function. And we're dealing with race. Embedded in the word racism is race. Two races that had nothing to do with prejudice, which people tend to try to make people think that's the same thing. It is not. Let's go on, talk about this. Another issue that we're dealing with in America has a psychological condition, white America. And I'm not coming down on white America, but y'all created this thing. And we got to talk about this. We got to face this truth. When you want to deal with an issue, psychological issue, where you go? You go to a counselor or psychiatrist. And America needs to go to get healed. They need to talk about this. That's what you do when you're dealing with some kind of emotional issue or psychological issue or whatever it is that is bothering you. Talk about this. And it's not always a pretty talk when you got to face this truth in order to start healing. And America needs to heal from the truth. It ain't your fault you were lied to by previous generations, but this is it. Here you go. And one of the problems is cognitive dissonance. Okay, you read here, it's when you are taught something from the time you were a child, and you got this idea of the world based on the information you got to understand we all carry the minds of those who came before us. Okay, our old teachers or parents and grandparents embedded certain ideas into us when we were children. Okay, but then you come across these truths found in these books. Okay, that people are, since at least the 1960s, have been trying to show from a perspective that of people like me. Again, we're here to correct errors where errors are found and introduce facts, where we find that most Americans have been working on fiction when it comes to who we are. Just listen to the news, listen to Fox News, listen to OLN, listen to Newsmax out there talking that nonsense, and that does not help fix the house. If you're ignoring the joist, if you're ignoring the stuff that the foundation, and you're working on other things, painting the room, the foundation needs to be shored up. Are you doing the house any good, or who in the house any good? Well, America, we're in a house that needs to be shored up, that needs to be fixed. And we can't have cognitive dissonance. That's why you have this feedback when we bring out these issues of black and race, and why you going to bring about race? You hear all these, that's a cognitive dissonant response. Why we always got to bring out the black card? That's from a white person on the news or in a family member. Okay, when they do that, they're suffering from cognitive dissonance, where the dissonance is irritating. A human being try to avoid a dissonance. Don't want to face that. Okay, we all don't want to face a truth, because that dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling, is something we try to get rid of. Some people could deal with it and face it, but a lot of people want to push it away with all kinds of different reactions. Let's go on to continue. This is another thing that you run into a lot today that I want people to understand. Until you understand these little quotes I tried to bring in every show, there's a thing called willful ignorance. Okay, there's ignorance, that means it's a lack of knowledge. Okay, a person didn't come across this information. Okay, nothing wrong with that. They're given that information, they get it, they go on with their purpose. But you see a lot in the news, a lot of these, especially Republican politicians. The reason I'm saying Republicans, I see that a lot now. Okay, I see that you just go to Fox News, you see willful ignorance. They know, but it's a decision in bad faith to avoid becoming informed about something, so as to avoid having to make undesirable decisions that such information might prompt. You don't think you see that today? Okay, this is not 100 years ago. Okay, when they created all these different kinds of crazy ideas about black people in order to justify enslavement. It's happening right now in the 21st century as we speak. Let's go on. Okay. The term willfully ignorant refers to those who lack the information or facts because they refuse to acknowledge them. It's another way of saying willful ignorance. Let's go on to the next one. This is something I'm sure you never heard. Remember I told you that racism is a system established by law. This is an example. This is going back to 1638. That's even before we had a United States by the Constitution. Okay, and when I say that this thing that we call racism has been around for centuries, this is the type of law that create the kind of ideology. We all carry the minds of those who came before us. Okay, and the ideas produce the behaviors, and laws are the ways that ideas and behaviors are produced. Following the law, you're going to produce a behavior. But if the law tells you this, like this example of the Maryland Doctrine of Exclusion, was collectively written by the Maryland Council in 1638 and states the following: neither the existing black population, their descendants, nor any other blacks shall be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society. Okay, that's what they said in 1638. That's the founding idea. Don't you see it now? Don't we call it racism? It's coming across in various different ways. But when we say racism, where do you have a system where you'll get the job, okay, or because the gatekeepers in the way the system is set up, because 50%. There was a survey that I read about where it said that 50% of the high-paying jobs are done based on recommendation by co-workers who once had that job. In other words, when you up there in the elites or in the white middle class, upper white middle class, the job that you get in banking or in government or anything that's high pay, engineering, and no matter but it's according to who you know. 50% of those jobs are based on who you know. But if you are left out of the system because of segregation, because of slavery, and you don't have that generational knowledge of knowing in those businesses, corporate America, okay, you ain't gonna get those jobs. But the system was set up that way. By law, it's not discrimination because it's supposed to be job neutral. But the way the system was set up, the racist system, you're going to be left out. You might as well say blacks don't apply or Latinos don't apply. Go on. When you're wondering why black people have a problem, it seems, with the criminal justice system, look at that star. That's how we were treated in our community, whether we were in a slave plantation or in a red line area where we were forced. You think that in the first police station was in Boston in 1838. You think those white Boston police officers were protecting and serving the black community? Or they're going to treat them no different than a person who is assigned to plantation police? Same thing. You think, and then the founding generation of any type of organization or system, their experience becomes the history of the following generation. And the history of multiple generations afterwards then becomes the traditions of a people. If the same behavior based on laws, you're going to behave the same way. We're stopping at stoplights and moving along the streets in our vehicles for the last 100 years because there's traffic laws. The people who first had to deal with these laws are long gone 100 years ago. But the behavioral pattern of driving the streets in America is based on laws. And the laws that created those and the laws that created the type of attitude when black people come together, they're called slave codes or black codes during segregation, they will produce a particular behavior. And you're wondering why police officers are treating us? Because the institution, racism, ideology, laws, whatever, and then systems in place. And if your system is based on that kind of thing, America is not the land of the free and the hope and the brave. And if you're feeling uncomfortable, you're suffering from the cognitive dissonance that I'm saying. You got to look in the mirror, white America, and some blacks who've given in to this issue. This is what we need to do. Now, when people talk about the Confederacy and, it was some kind of states' rights, no. The vice president of the Confederacy, Alexander H. Stephens, I think he's from Georgia, said in 1861, "Our new government is founded," this is the Confederacy, "upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, white supremacy, that slavery, subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition." Now, he wasn't in 1638. This is 1861. Again, we all carry the minds of those who come before us. So this is, I'm trying to understand that you still got people in 2023, in the 21st century, who thinks like him. You saw them on January 6th. Carrying a flag that represents that government he represented. You're telling me they don't think like that in America today? So when you hear a black person or a white ally of black people, and that's another point you want to understand. If you want to get rid of books, DeSantis, then you're getting rid of the information about our white allies who are alongside us. It was our struggle, and we should run and decide what we need as black people, but we've had white allies, and we got who died for this cause of racial equality. We still need to work, and if you don't know about them, they're the problem. Let's go on to the next one. This is a gentleman, you're familiar with this flag. Again, you saw it flying in the halls of Congress when the seditionists, and they were seditionists, on January 6th, started fighting the Capitol Police and stormed the Capitol building. This is the person who created that battle flag of Northern Virginia, of Robert E. Lee, the Army of Northern Virginia. His name was William T. Thompson, creator of the Confederate flag, who said, "As a people, we are fighting to maintain the heaven-ordained supremacy of the white man over the inferior or colored race. A white flag would thus be emblematic of our cause. Upon a red field would stand forth our Southern Cross, okay, preserving in beautiful contrast the red, white, and the blue. So it still got the American colors, but in this design. And he's saying this heaven ordained, that God ordained that black people. This is the kind of mentality that we're talking about, America, that still is embedded in the origin story of America. You think that the Confederacy, they might have lost the war, but they still fighting the political war. To this day, you see it in the Republican Party. You see it in the mega Republicans. You know, when we say white supremacy, we're not making some kind of hyperbole today as black people. We're talking about we have been dealing with these monster kind of ideas for hundreds of years. But also in history, we are taught how to deal with that because our ancestors have been doing this. This war has been going on. There's an old saying that politics is blood without bloodshed, and war is politics with bloodshed. Okay, so the war aspect of the Civil War was lost by the Confederacy, but the political war is still going on. Okay, and if you don't vote in 2024, you think they're not fighting that war as we speak? You think they did not, the ideology of Confederacy is gone over 150 years ago? No, that flag is still flying around in places in Mississippi and Alabama, on backs of trucks, whatever. The war is still being fought, but it's fought in the political war, okay? And we must be aware of that. Don't go to sleep. Let's go on. Now, you wonder where these monuments are? Look at all the monuments. This is not happening like a year after the Civil War. This happened from the time of the Civil War up until the 70s. Okay, the people familiar with Stone Mountain in Georgia, outside of Atlanta, it got finished. The emboss got finished in 1970. Spiro Agnew, the Vice President of the United States under Nixon, was there to commemorate something that in 1915 the Ku Klux Klan reestablished itself, okay, with a ceremony. In 1970, they had this kind of monument called Stone Mountain that exists to this day. And look at all those Confederate monuments all over the country. Look at that. This is after the war. They lost, technically, the political, the shooting war, but they're still fighting that political war. Let's go on. Even, white people that we considered, our allies, sort of. Abraham Lincoln said, look what he said. You and we are different races. He's talking about black and white. We have between us a broader difference than exists between almost any other two races, whether or not, even though there's one race, okay? It is the right, if it is right or wrong, I need not discuss. But this physical differences is a great disadvantage to us both. I'm not going to go on with the rest of that, but you get the idea of how Abraham Lincoln thought. He thought it changed a little bit, but this is the foundation. He didn't learn this from out of the air. He was taught this as a child. This is the ideology of America, and I don't want to come down. I'm an American, but we got to face this truth. Frederick Douglass said that a true American does not accept the wrongs of America, but is able to rebuke it if it does things wrong. And that's the kind of American I am. If it's wrong, I'm going to let you know, America. When you're dealing with your children, if they do things wrong in order for them to grow into the best of themselves, then you got to tell them what they did wrong. And that's what I'm doing here. Let's go on. You talking about Black Wall Street? These are just some of the massacres, okay, that occurred. It's after the Civil War. And this is a lot of them you see in the 20th century, okay? Later 1800s, but early 20th century, 1900s. all over. Black people were slaughtered. And white America's afraid of us? You think we're separated? This is what we've been dealing with. And you think what these folks are doing now is any different than that? Come on. Yeah, we made some progress. There's no slaughters, but the war still continues politically. And we better, right now, our weapon of choice is our vote. But we keep vigilance, okay? There's a book that I'm reading that tells about the history during that period of time of black folks. It's called We Shoot Back. Let's go on. Talking about craziness. This was a book that came out, I think, in 1851. They actually created a disease to justify this man. This went into a medical books. Okay, this is the book, okay, that says that black people ran away because they had this psychological disease, drapetomania. Crazy. But to justify white supremacy, still separate. You wondering why you hear and use me to say, but this is a divided country. What's wrong? We've always been. That's the point of these shows. Let's go on. We got a few more minutes. Black people had to use this book just to drive from East Coast to West Coast. It's called the Green Book. Look it up. It was created by a brother, he's a postal worker, who saw a problem because you couldn't go across, this video came out, music video came out about what we do with a small town, we don't do that. Well, small towns were death traps for black people just to go to visit a family from New York to California. You got to know where to stop and where to go. That's the horror of America. Separate. Let's go on. Okay, like I said, we had white allies. These were the Schwerner Goodman and Bailey. These were the three, just to vote. If you don't think that people got killed for voting, this is two white men and a black man in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Philadelphia, Mississippi, where Ronald Reagan first went to start his presidential campaign to signal to the white South that I'm with you. He went to the place they give. President Johnson, this is a book that you might want to get, and it's the Kerner Report. Okay, the Essential Kerner Commission. This was established by President Johnson back in 1967. It got published in 1968 based on the many riots that were going on where black people were just pissed off. But I wanted to leave with what the Kerner Commission said. It said the long hot summers of 1967, more than 150 riots, okay? Let's go on. King's assassination riots. There was those in 68. And this is what it is: segregation, poverty, and white racism. That's what was come to the conclusion. But this is what the basic conclusion says. Our nation is moving toward two societies, one black, one white, separate and unequal. Reaction to the last summer's disorder. This is the conclusion of the Kerner Commission. This is after Brown versus the Board of Education, okay? This is 1968, February. You see, we still got work to do, folks. I just gave you a little taste. This is what this show is about. And so I hope you got something out of this. So until next time, I'm going to call it quits right now. Peace. Hotep. Bye-bye.